Okay, welcome back everyone to episode 8 of The Boiling Point. Chaos on the left. We have a long anticipated guest returning. He was on the first inaugural episode, Wise Joe. A lot of people have wanted him back on the show since his first appearance, and he is finally back with us. Welcome back, Joe. How's it going?
It's going.
Good.
We're getting our way through life.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're going to jump into our topic here in a minute, which, why don't you hold the book up so that they can see it. But first, just for a minute, make sure you can check out The Boiling Point on Facebook, facebook.com/The Boiling Point. Also go to facebook.com/JDEDESIGNz and go to bonfire.com/JDEDESIGNz apparel to get some JD Designs and soon Boiling Point apparel. And as you saw, Joe just held the book up. We're talking about this book that he is reading through. It's called Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. It's by Tom O'Neill with Dan Piepenbring. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Now, we're not going too much into the book right yet. Joe wants to save that for another episode, but there are lots of references to what he wanted to talk about in the book, so he brought it along to show everybody so that if people want to read themselves, they can. So, Joe, why don't you take us in then?
Okay, so this book really just brought out like the entire idea of how espionage and how our intelligence and counterintelligence programs like interfere and interact with our like domestic citizens' lives and different things, especially in times like we're living right now. Like the same kind of left uprising movement, whatever you want to call it, we'll call it a movement, just to not offend anybody, but the whole idea of the left bringing in policies or like having these protests and then there being the same type of outcome and like outrage, same type of like protesting, peaceful protesting.
I want to be clear here.
The riots.
Are you talking about the peaceful protests? Because there have been a few legitimate peaceful protests at the beginning.
Yeah, but it's all tied together.
But the rest of it is not protesting; it's called rioting.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I mean. And that's exactly where our intelligence programs come in. That's
all right.
Our counterintelligence programs come into that. In a way that's like we start out and the left has these plans to have peaceful protests and they come out and they start protesting and trying to lobby for change in the way that we find appropriate, which is a peaceful protest. Exactly. Yes. But then people who are against that with power, like people in programs like the CIA, the FBI, even just freelance security divisions nowadays have the ability and the resources to go in and cause disdain or disrupt and discredit them to whatever extent they fucking deem necessary.
Or hijack their
they hijack
narrative.
Basically, that's what they do. They hijack their platform by influencing people of power within the organizations that are lobbying for change, and they get them to do things that are going to basically discredit them, or even if their ideas are reasonable and they're trying to go about it the right way, they'll try and create like a violent outcome where your peaceful protest turns into a city burning to the ground because some people known as like what you would call provocateurs come in, and the reason this book has brought this up to me because in the 60s with the Black Panther uprising and the civil rights movements and all that stuff happening at the time, whereas Martin Luther King had just been killed a few years prior to like what's happening in this book, and basically it's very similar type of it's not like a similar outcome because there's no ending to what's happening now, but there's a lot of similarities to what the FBI and the CIA did specifically during those time periods as far as disrupting the left. Like the same idea, whereas it's a peaceful thing and people on the left want to come up and have these protests and make sure that things are going well without being violent. That's where these programs come in and they influence them to be violent. And it's not the same as what's in this book, because this book is really crazy and wild, but it just shows to like what extent and like how far they were willing to take it then, and how it compares to now. Like it's not as insane, but I'm sure if we really knew, it would be a lot darker.
Yeah. Well, the CIA does a lot of things up to the books. They're, counterintelligence, intelligence agency. They do a lot of things all over the world.
Yeah, but see, I mean, one of the things with them is they're not allowed to operate in domestic soil, and the whole entire idea that they were here in the 60s doing what they were doing, disrupting the left movement, it's unprecedented. Like,
so you're saying the CIA is hijacking the left movement?
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
That's my theory. My theory is I'm saying that the parallels between then and now are like, it's I don't
similar?
know. Yeah, they're very similar. But there's no, I don't have any actual evidence. This is just a theory. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go over what they were capable of and willing to do in the 60s, and like possibly open up the idea that it's happening. I'm not saying they are out there, but like, why wouldn't they be?
Well, I mean, I think
somebody's out there hijacking those protests, and it's already been like pointed to that they were like provocateurs that weren't necessarily associated with the programs, and people want to say that they're all probably just citizens out there wanting to burn shit down, but I mean, it's pretty calculated the way that all went down.
Yeah. I'm not saying that someone that's not possible. Like when
I'm just saying that the possibilities there.
When the protests first started, I believe, because listen, Black Lives Matter started in 2007. We talked a little bit briefly about this in the very first episode when you and I spoke, and they have changed their mission statement a couple of times, especially in the last 8 months to 12 months. And I'm still learning about them. I don't want to say that I'm, experienced enough to understand them. I'm still reading over their stuff so that I can understand about them, so that I can, comment intelligently about it. So I don't feel that's appropriate that I speak too much about it right now. But I'm not sure that they were hijacked. It appears to me, just based on the very little information that I have so far, that the people who run Black Lives Matter, the people at the top, are not necessarily CIA people.
No, that's not what I'm implying at all.
Obviously, they're the ones who, this is what they wanted all along, the peaceful protests. So the people who were protesting peacefully from Black Lives Matter were they thought they were caught up in something that was a legitimate protest, that, they wanted change.
Yeah. No, here, let me get in on that.
Yeah, sure.
What I'm saying here, the type of disdain and disrupt that these programs would cause is totally indirect. Like, it's directly indirect, whereas they would implant people who would go in and become part of the organization and then rise up through the ranks, and they would be close to the people in power and have influence in the sense of being persuasive, manipulative, and basically influence them into these ideas to make their movement less valid. Where, like, at the beginning, they had this great plan. It was simple. They went on with what they wanted to do, and they started growing, and they gained movement, and they got a bunch of followers, and they have people that helped them with their organization. And then as that was happening, the people who could understand and see it all together as a whole, because they're intelligence gathering individuals, is what they do all day, every day, is they find out the direction that something's going, and they don't like that. They just implant people in there and steer it in a different direction. They steer it the same type of direction, but they just want to destroy the legitimacy of the movement.
So who do you think is steering the ship?
I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate as to who it is, because, like, as I said, CIA is not allowed to operate on domestic soil. Not that they haven't, but that it has come out, like, there's declassified files because they got caught doing it. So I don't think they're doing it necessarily anymore, but the FBI is allowed to do it, and they do it. That's a fact.
So you think the FBI could be?
The FBI could very much be trying to delegitimize the movement of the left now.
What if I told you that there was evidence to support the theory that the people who started this is exactly what they wanted?
Okay.
Then they wouldn't be co-opted or being hijacked.
That's what somebody at the time in the 60s. Look, in the 60s, it was to destabilize the left.
Yes, but
now the narrative has changed. Whereas the governmental agencies have shifted to the left, so they're now trying to destabilize the rights movement by any means necessary, as far as lies, propaganda. So it would be in the opposite direction now. Whereas those movements and those people would be of a higher governmental affiliation, as to the opposite effect. In the 60s, it was the other way, where the government was very right and very conservative. Now it's leaning a lot more left, and they're trying to push for a lot more socialist leftist policy.
Yes. And I could definitely understand. I understand your theory, and it's certainly not a bad one.
At this point, it's destabilized Trump's legitimacy as much as possible.
And you're absolutely. The thing is, I'm not sure if it's being influenced by the CIA or the FBI.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
Influenced by people who started this movement and then who just continued to gain power and gain strength. Or, you know what? The way it's all working out, you're probably right. There probably is someone at the top, or a group of someone's at the top orchestrating what's happening, both with the riots and, the anti-Trump.
And it's not even an orchestration, really.
I don't know. Much. A lot of things have happened that just, for it not to be orchestrated would be a lot of strange coincidences happening at very coincidental times as well.
That's true.
Because it seems like we get a new incident of this every few months. As soon as it's
monthly at this point.
As soon as it starts to die down, as soon as the news starts covering other things, it's back. So you know what I mean. I'm not saying that. I'm not sure who it is. Your theory is as good as any, certainly. It just seems like the way the mainstream media and everything that's happening, it's working out too well, I think. You know what I mean? And I don't know how much it's actually working.
That's what they do.
Yeah. Now, I don't know how much it's working.
Just like in the past, it worked out it seemed so seamless that the right just had their policies and kept the government the way they were running it and, was running for...
the problem is you also have to fool the people, and I'm not sure that enough of the people are being fooled at this point. Now, certainly, if you check the polls...
that's the thing. There's always two sides to it, because, you fool the people, and then the people who aren't fooled are usually the people who are being what's the term? I don't even know what to call it. Having espionage used against them.
The people who
are aware that the other side has this power to change things.
So you're saying both sides are being influenced? Doesn't matter.
No, not necessarily. I guess in a sense they kind of are.
What I'm saying is not wrong. They both. There's two sides to every story, just like you say, and both political parties have a lot of power with the media and stuff like that. You're certainly
But it's always one side, the side with more power, and basically the side who's dominating at the time. And I guess I'd hate to say it, but the left is dominating at this time. There's way more left-leaning politicians now than there was in the 60s. So what I'm saying is their influence is they're
when you
gonna
say left wing, hold on, we gotta let's clarify some terms here for a minute, because listen, the civil rights movement.
We're saying American left wing.
When slavery ended, the civil rights movement, they were all voted on by Republicans. They were liberal Republicans, but they were Republicans, not Democrats. So when we talk about liberal or left, we have to separate these terms. Too often we use the same terms to describe
too liberally.
Exactly.
Yes.
Honestly, yes. So, when we talk about the left, we mean Democrats. When we talk about the right, we mean Republicans.
Exactly.
Liberals. You can have liberal Republicans. You can have right. Yeah, you can have liberal Republicans, and you
Not
can have
Eastern
conservative
European left-right.
and you can also have conservative Democrats. Yes. Then if you get into the European model, then you got
Western Europe.
then you've got
European.
different classifications for what the left and the right mean. So we should just stick with Democrats and Republicans, so that way people know more specifically what we're talking about. Because there have been liberal Republicans. Some Republicans are liberals.
Yes,
so
very much. So now let's get on to, like, this has been very hypothetical, so let's get on to what is actually a fact and the programs that have actually been utilized on domestic soil, and even a few that have been on foreign soil. Like, we'll compare and contrast a little bit here.
Okay.
So what I wanted to start out with, and why this book is basically, like, brought me to this idea, or why this book has brought me to this idea, is because of the programs that were used in the 60s. And we'll go all the way back to the beginning, to the MK Ultra programs, where the CIA is using LSD to test on, like, just pretty much whoever they fucking deem to be tested on. Like, they just pick people up, test LSD on them, try and control their mind. So that what the MK Ultra program was their LSD mind control program. And this is as far back as I want to go. I'm sure there was earlier evidence of domestic use of the CIA, but this was like the one that kind of matters in a sense. So MK Ultra, I say we'll start with that because that came about in like 53, and that's before the stuff in this book is happening. It happened over years, all the way into the 70s. It was like a large scope, so this program wasn't just like happened in the 50s and then they talked about it. Like, this program was happening the whole time as their intelligence operations like have been being revealed. This was something on the back burner that was just still happening, and this leads into like the Chaos and COINTELPRO programs. Well, Chaos was a CIA operation like led by Richard Helms during Hoover's time, right? So J. Edgar Hoover issues a memorandum on August 25th, 1967 to the FBI, COINTELPRO, saying how the increase in factionalized communists in the United States is becoming a problem, and what that basically is about is the uprising of the Hollywood Communist Party, the Black Panther movements, other movements like that at the time, the U.S. organization, like stuff like that. That was left, quote unquote, movements, and as I said, there was more conservative and right at the time, so they were the ones basically like, okay, we don't like how this looks, we'll destabilize it and delegitimize it as much as possible. So COINTELPRO was activated. They start gathering intelligence on the left and trying to disdain them. The original memorandum that comes out is pretty wild. So, like, I'll read it here. It's to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, or otherwise neutralize the activities of black nationalist hate type organizations, which they mean like Black Panthers, specifically U.S. organization, which weren't hate groups. So the activities of all such groups of intelligence interest to this bureau must be followed on a continuous basis. Efforts of various groups to consolidate their forces or to recruit new or youthful adherents must be frustrated. No opportunity should be missed to exploit the organizational and personal conflicts of the leaderships of the group, to capitalize upon existing conflicts between competing black national organizations by any means necessary. So, right away, they come out, they make their shit, like their agenda is clear to the bureau. This is what you do, any means necessary. Gather information, delegitimize this movements.
Yeah.
And at the same time, right, the same month, even. Oh, that's not the right spot. Hold on 1 second here. So yeah, the same month, the CIA releases a program called Chaos. Chaos is employed a bunch of agents, informants to infiltrate subversive groups and then neutralize them. And the CIA basically would take what the FBI's information was gathering, use their espionage type tactics, infiltrate, cause disdain. So, like I said, they would come in, they would get close to the leaders of organizations, people who had influence, and then they would influence them. So whatever their agenda was, they're like feeding like little bits of influence to these people, guiding them in the direction that they want to take it to delegitimize it. Like take a organization or a movement that's heading in a direction to create like civil change that you don't like, and make them violent and start having them spout out radicalized ideas. So basically the CIA would implant people and then radicalize the leaders of movements. Like, which basically unvalidates what they're trying to do. They take it too far to the extremes, and then whatever they were pushing for is not going to happen now, because like you don't bend to the whim of terrorists, and radical leaders are always ending up becoming terrorists. So the CIA, they implant these agents, and they start using this intelligence information to basically cause disdain. Then they move in to areas of a larger magnitude, and what I mean by that is they go from influence to straight up murdering citizens, like cold-blooded murder. They come in, take out black nationalists,
which has happened.
Yes.
Well, it hasn't happened necessarily to black nationalists, but it certainly.
100% has.
Well, it has.
And
it certainly happened to a Trump supporter in the street, but.
Well, that happened to a Trump supporter from another citizen. This is the CIA cold-blooded, like coming in, committing cold-blood murder against organizations because they're gaining too much clout. So, damn, I wish I had looked up the part where they go into the specific Black Panther who they assassinated, because there was a few. But anyways, so these tactics that they used on people in the 60s, they learned and used in Vietnam. So they had a program called the Phoenix Project, which was like, it was used to cause disdain in the Viet Cong. They would go in, do the same thing, influence them, invalidate their movement so that the people of Vietnam wouldn't go and join their movements. They eventually came to a point where they created these assassination squads, and they would just go around and kill Viet Cong. They killed anywhere from 26,000 to 41,000 different Viet Cong soldiers, informants, and basically just supporters of Viet Cong movements that they didn't like. And they did this over a span of a couple years. And that's the kind of thing that the CIA does in foreign soil for us, in our name, quote unquote, to destabilize communist movements, fascist movements, keep radical leaders and governments from coming to too much power that they could then use it and turn on the U.S. That's their prerogative. They know how it goes. It always comes to this point because we're always everywhere doing some type of thing. As far as militarily, our military industrial complex is the U.S. It belongs to the U.S., but it's all over the world.
We are all over the world.
It's everywhere. So they don't want these movements to be used against us. So what they do is they disrupt and disdain them. And they, just like, we didn't get to bring up the points on Castro, but that's a similar scenario in the sense where they went in, they tried causing disdain, they had an assassination plot. That didn't pan out. So Vietnam's where they really honed this skill. and like gains the ability to do this. Now, at the same time, the CIA is in San Francisco, in LA. They're spread out all over the country doing their MK Ultra programs through like smaller subversiary programs like Operation Midnight Climax, which is a program where they set up brothels. They would have whores in the brothels, and it would be an operating thing, and they'd have their Johns. Yeah, the Johns would come in. They would get them dosed up on LSD, take him to the room, fool around with him, do whatever they do until the person is like tripping balls and in this not like other world, because at the time they're dosing people with a lot of fucking LSD. These people are probably fucking rocked out of their minds. And
do you happen to know any? Could you give us any history on the CIA? Or do you not know much about the history of the CIA yet?
I know that the CIA.
If you don't hear,
it was formed by. Well, it came about after the fucking World War II, right? So
it started during World War II in 1939.
But see, it came
the State Department,
from the USO.
Hold on, the State Department, the Army, the Navy, and the FBI were collecting intelligence, but there was no coordination, no direction, nor were the agencies necessarily interacting with each other or anything like that. President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, created the Office of the Coordinator of Information, the COI, to streamline the collection and to gather everything and to be able to direct the intelligence gathering. And that's where it first started. That's what it was called.
And
the
that
Office
was
of Coordinator of Information. Then it becomes the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, and then it becomes the Central Intelligence Group, and then the CIA actually starts in 47. September 18th, 1947 is actually when it becomes the CIA. It goes through a
1947. Yeah, I was gonna say following so in 47 the CIA is actually created and opened up by Roosevelt.
Truman actually was the one who was president in 47 who actually...
But Roosevelt initiated it.
Yes. I mean, he started what was going to be the CIA. At the time, it was called the Office of the Coordinator of Information. It was just to coordinate the information from all the intelligence services.
I did know it happened. It came about.
And then it becomes the Office
of World War II.
And then it becomes the Office of Strategic Services. That was during most of World War II. That was how because eventually they had so much information gathering coming in, they turned it into an office. Then it was the Central Intelligence Group, and then and that was in January of 46, and then in September of 47, that is when it becomes the actual Central Intelligence Agency. Truman was the president at that time.
Yes. Okay. So let me get into into that a little bit. After the CIA is created, it operates under a couple pretty major presidents, right in a row. Like Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Nixon all had major ties with the CIA, and obviously they did their president, but had been affiliated with CIA before their presidency.
Yes.
You know, that's what I mean. That's more important. So during the 60s...
Well, Roosevelt was the first director of the CIA, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe he was. I'm gonna double check that. I can double check that. But as far as that goes, I would like to talk about Richard Helms. He was the director of the CIA.
No,
66 to 73, I believe.
No, hold on. It was Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter. He was the first director of the CIA.
Okay. I've never heard that name before.
I don't know for how long he was, but... So, yeah, that's... the The CIA has a long history. It was brought about to gather intelligence and to perform paramilitary warfare outside of the United States. It's not to act inside our borders. In much the same way the FBI is not necessarily authorized to make arrests outside of the United States.
Yes. So in the late 60s, you have both organizations working for the same goal, at the same time, in the same places. Under who did I say?
Under which one, I'm sorry?
I forgot who the president was then. Hoover? No. Yeah. Right? No.
I don't know.
Regardless. Yeah, so what I was saying at the beginning of this is like it seems similar in basically an opposite direction where
you're
the
saying it's
Republican
just the other side
Party,
of the coin, yeah.
exactly, where the Republican parties are basically being invalidated by the left by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Not saying like they're going out and executing us or executing people, but it's...
They're not maybe assassinating people, but some people...
And some people have been executed.
Some people,
yes,
yeah.
You are right about that. But it's... I don't think that the intelligence programs are out there causing as much disdain in the sense of like murdering people, but I definitely would believe it if it came out that they were out there causing... like out there discrediting everybody.
It's interesting.
Influencing leaders to be radical or becoming provocateurs, taking a movement and turning it violent to discredit
that is certainly
the
one theory. That is certainly one theory. The other theory is that, or another theory is certainly that this group was has founders who wanted it to be violent from the beginning, but didn't necessarily have the power to do it until recently, when things started going crazy. And now they're this big organization, but it is eerily similar in the opposite kind of sense. So it is something to think about, certainly.
And it's almost like you said, how it's happening from both sides, because at this point both sides have enough power that they could use different branches of whatever organization and disrupt and disdain. Because the left's protests, the Democratic protests have seemed to there's been more of them that have been violent.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yes, there's been more riots than there's been protesting recently. Yes, it started out with protesting and it went to rioting pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Which again is not the way you get things done in this country. Protesting is great,
the way to go.
And that's fine, and that is the way to go. Violence is not okay. Burning down neighborhoods is not okay. It's just not okay. For any reason, it doesn't matter what the reason is. There's very little evidence to support that people are being suppressed in the manners in which some people are being claimed. Is there problems? Certainly, this country has got lots of problems. We're not perfect in this country. It's it's an idea that's unfinished. You know what I mean? The country is not meant to be finished. It can't be finished. Because a utopian society can't exist in this world.
Not as of right now.
Corruption exists no matter what form of government you have. Our form of government is by far the best, and in terms of that, it's least susceptible to one person gaining absolute power. We have checks and balances in place. Exactly. So that's why we have a constitution which outlines very specific things for each branch and what the people are allowed to do, because the people are in charge.
That's right.
Not
mobs. That needs to be clear.
Mobs are not in charge. People are in charge.
Yes,
there is a difference.
Let's be clear about this.
There's a difference between mobs and people.
Civil unrest delegitimizes whatever you're saying.
Yes, yeah, that's all that's happening.
And
the only people,
whether that's coming from the influence of organizations higher up, governmentally, or security agencies, freelance groups, or just people in general, the mob rule it delegitimizes whatever you're saying.
Yes, when you're talking, yes, when it's agree with me or get beat up, or agree with me or get shot in the street.
Exactly.
Or agree with me or we burn your business down or your house down. That's when it doesn't matter anymore. That's when you are literally for protesting and rioting about that you don't have all the freedoms and all the rights as everybody else, which is what supposedly is what the claim is, which is not true. Then you can't then take away other people's rights in the process of trying to claim your own. You can't do that. That's not how it works. You become no better than the person that you claim is oppressing you.
You want your freedoms. Everybody wants their freedoms.
Yes.
I want my freedoms.
We live in a free country with a constitution and with a set of laws, and freedoms are defined within those laws. I mean, obviously we have laws, so not everything is free. You can't just do whatever you...
Exactly.
You can't just do anything you want to.
Civil unrest. See, the problem with what's happening in rioting and shit, whenever you become violent and burn a business to the ground or do something like the fucking autonomous zone chop, when you come in and just take something, you set the precedence that someone can come then take it from you.
Yeah.
If they have more force and power. It was okay that you did it. That means it's okay for them to do it.
Exactly.
You don't get freedoms that other people get. That's not like, and I know that's like the white privilege sounding, but like that's the thing. It's not. Like, everybody should have the same freedoms regardless. No fucking race involved. Everybody should just have the same freedoms, and nobody should be trying to take anybody else's freedoms away.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You do and have the freedoms that you want to have. Gonna do and have the freedoms that I would prefer to have. You know, like within reason, of course.
Yes, obviously.
Within reason, within the confines of law.
And the Constitution.
Constitutional law.
I mean, the Constitution is what the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. They give us, there are founding documents, they give us a great basis to base our laws off of, and that's going to be a great segue into what will be the next episode of The Boiling Point, which I'll be filming later today. It'll be up probably the next day or two after you're watching this. But later on I'll be having Gavin Sr. on, and one of the things that we're going to be talking about is the Constitution and what the founders got off the Constitution, why they worded it, why they put it that way, what it's based off of, where they got their values from to create this Constitution. So that's going to be excellent. We're talking about it now, and we'll be talking about it on the next episode as well. But yes, we have documentation. We have founding documents that tell us a lot of stuff. It gives us a lot of information, more than most people think it does. Yeah. And that's what our judicial branch is for, the Supreme Court, to uphold the laws and strike down laws that are unconstitutional. So there is no racist laws or biased laws or anything like that, or the Supreme Court would strike them down as unconstitutional, which they have done before.
Anytime.
I did not have those stats in front of me. I didn't know we were going to be getting to the Supreme Court today, but they have struck down laws that are unconstitutional. And so that's what we have. That's why we have three branches of government. There's a reason that we have three branches of government. There's a reason there's checks and balances. And, I mean, you may not like our system of government, but it is better than any of the other ones, as evidenced by history.
Yeah, no, definitely. And
because more democracies have survived much longer.
Communist and fascist governments.
Socialists.
Any socialist government has failed every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Venezuela is the most recent.
Yes, they're in shambles.
country is not in a good place. That is for sure.
No, it'll take 20 years if they start changing things right this second for Venezuela to get out of the hole. But
and it never works that way. Once you're in it, you're out. Like once you're in it, you're in it. And to change it back, it takes things like uprising.
It certainly does take time.
It takes things like civil war to change.
Sometimes, not always, but sometimes.
Not always.
But sometimes. So.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. I think we're going to.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up.
We're gonna wrap.
So hold on. Let me plug this book.
Absolutely. We're gonna wrap this up. But go ahead.
Chaos. It's called Charles Manson, the CIA, and Secret History of the '60s. We touched a little bit about the counterintelligence program aspects and the D-class files that it points to.
And you're gonna come back on and talk about it once you're finished.
In another episode. I'm just about done with it. I just didn't want to talk about Charles Manson today because that episode's going to be a little longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we got into part of it. It's a really interesting book. It's blowing my mind. Sorry I wasn't more prepared, but I just got my car yesterday, and that's why I haven't been around and on. But now I got the wheels. I called John here. Hopped up on my wheels, rode over here this morning, unprepared, but...
We wanted to get an episode in because Joe has been requested by a few viewers. They wanted him back on, so we had him back on, and he will definitely be on again.
And come down to 7 Dots Pizza, Carlisle, PA.
Absolutely. 7 Dots Pizza in Carlisle, yes. I had a couple people asking me about the 7 Dots, and yes, it's in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. That's where you can go stop in.
40 East Lowther Street.
Stop in, grab a pizza, tell them you were told to stop in by the Boiling Point and Wise Joe. And make sure you can follow us on, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, just search youtube.com/The Boiling Point Podcast, facebook.com/
I'm gonna plug my social media.
The Boiling Point Podcast, facebook.com/JDEDESIGNz, and get yourself some apparel. www.bonfire.com/JDEDESIGNz apparel, and we'll be having some Boiling Point apparel up soon. Thanks for tuning in, and look for the next episode. Oh, you got something else?
Yeah. You can follow me on Instagram.
Oh, go ahead.
Joey Powder. On Twitter at Dr. Bombs. And
that's it. That's it. All right. Well, then thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will have Bombs again on and look for another episode the next day or so with Gavin Whitcomb Sr., Pastor Gavin Whitcomb Sr. Have a nice day.